Good morning, and welcome to Schenectady Today in and around the Capital Region. Normally it's hosted by Ann Perillo, but she's a little under the weather today. So my name is Janice Walls. Usually I'm behind the camera, but today I'm in front. Ann has planned a wonderful show for you today, including the Squeeze Play Band. And we're going to talk about Schenectady Civic's Players' production of The School for Scandal. And then we're going to have pedal, paddle, run information, all those good things that keep us healthy. And then we'll talk a little bit about recycling, and that keeps our earth healthy. And we'll close with the Squeeze Play Band. And it turns out that our breaks today are on recycling. So Ann has planned a wonderful show for you today. Welcome. Our first guest today will be the Play Squeeze Band. Squeeze Play Band. And they will play one number, and then we'll get to know a little bit about them. Take it away. Much. I don't know about the rest of our audience, but I was dancing over there to the Liechtensteiner polka. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wonderful. And I'd like to introduce Peggy Hart, who is the director of the group. And can you tell us, when do you meet and where do you play, Peggy?
Well, we meet, Yes. Okay. We meet we practice, Tuesday nights we're going to be practicing outdoors at Voorheesville Gazebo, right by the town center there. And we're always looking for new accordion players. So.
And you mentioned that you sometimes play at other libraries around the area. Where are some other places that you play?
We're going to be playing at the Bethlehem Library July 25th this year. And we've played there before. And we played at the downtown library before, too. So.
And in talking with Peggy, not only do they play German music, as you just heard, but they play a wide variety of music also. Yes. So I'm going to talk to just a couple members of the band, and then we're going to hear another number from this wonderful band. Since you're close by, can you tell me your name?
Sure. My name is Russ Patrician. And I've been with the band probably around 3 years, I guess. And as Peg said, we do play a bunch of different styles of music. We play a lot of patriotic events. We play for the Vietnam veterans. We play for a group that I'm associated with, which is Patriot Flight Group. And we play Mardi Gras type music. We play fairs. We played the state fair. We've played various area fairs. And we have a good time. We mix it up, and people seem to enjoy us, and that's what we're here for, to make people happy.
And obviously your instrument is an accordion, and there are different styles of accordion. My husband has a button accordion, but this is called a piano?
Piano accordion. This is an electronic accordion. Most of the people here have acoustic accordions. Mine's a little different. I do have an acoustic as well, but this gives me a little flexibility to add different sounds. And we have a young lady here who plays a special instrument that looks like a violin, but when she joined, she understood that we were an accordion band, so she assured us that that was a European-style stringed accordion. So we have accepted that.
Okay. In fact, could you pass this over, and let's find out the name of this person who is playing a stringed accordion.
My name is Susan St. Amour, and I'm a happy guest.
How long have you been in the band?
Well, I've played with them several years. Thank you.
So I think it's time to hear another number by the Squeeze Play Band. thank you very much. And we'll be hearing more of the Squeeze Play Band at the end of the show. And right now we're going to go to break, and then we're going to speak to Schenectady Civic players and the School of Lies. Right now we'll go to composting.
Can everybody? I'm trying to do the best with 16. Okay. You know what? And so bioremediation as well is making good compost. Did Juniper talk much about compost bioremediation in her presentation? So bioremediation obviously is a really complex field. There's a lot of variables, a lot of factors that are going to determine what to do and whether it's going to be successful or not. But one thing that I commonly recommend to people is if you have property that's used to spraying yourself from these contaminants, particularly if it's lead that's in the soil, it prevents it from becoming dust-borne and getting onto clothes and being inhaled and being ingested, which is a major route for it to affect children, particularly who are particularly at risk for lead contamination. So it's going to cover it up. It's also going to bind it up. Lead readily, it's what is called lipophilic. It really likes to bind with fatty tissues, which is why it's such a problem for kids, and that it binds with our brain tissue, which is made up of a lot of fat cells. So it will form actually organic compounds with the organic matter that is in compost. And when it's bound up in like that, it's going to be in a form where it's unavailable for assimilation. So if it did happen to be accidentally ingested, it would be more likely to pass through us rather than bind with the tissues in our own body. So another good reason to apply compost. Thirdly, compost creates habitat for many of the beneficial microorganisms that are going to be playing active roles in bioremediation. So we talk about, we're going to be making compost tea and show you how to actually culture microorganisms, or there's even a method called microremediation. We're using fungi to break down certain types of toxins. None of those methods are going to work unless there's a medium for them to actually be surviving in. And good compost is an excellent medium for that. And many of those organisms are actually going to be present in well-made compost in the first place. So it's an excellent way to inoculate potentially contaminated soil with those organisms. And even if it's not contaminated, it's still excellent just for soil health and soil vitality. So who composts here? Awesome. A really critical thing to do for people to be doing. Really, I believe that everybody should be composting. And if there's one skill I'd like you to take away is to learn how to compost well. Because we talked about just the amount of energy that goes into growing food for one thing, bringing it into cities, but then how it's doubly wasted when that food just gets thrown into the landfill and lots of produces methane. So it's really critical to learn how to take that organic matter and break it down into soil for use in gardening.
Okay, so
all methods of composting that are going to hold true. Getting the carbon to nitrogen ratio correct in your compost. Does anybody know what that ratio is offhand? What's that? I usually go for more like 30 to 1. And throw some out there.
leaves.
Brown leaves, dried leaves, my number one favorite.
Newspaper?
Yep, newspaper. Let me just say about leaves, the reason why I love them so much is because they're so available in the fall, and then again in the spring when people rake out their yards and they fill up the brown bags out on the street. We've got one right over there. And
Well, hello and welcome back. And if anyone likes the Squeeze Play group, they do have a CD, and I know we were flashing contact information while they were playing. So they do have a lovely CD, and that way you can go dancing around your kitchen when you're doing your chores. And you'll be inspired to make some very, very good German potato salad. Now, we're going over to the School for Lies over at Civic Playhouse. And it is directed by, way down at the end, Chris Foster and David Rook and Angelique Powell. All very, very good, and I've already signed up to usher, of course, get in there and make coffee.
Excellent.
So that's the important part. Oh yeah, the play is important too.
Oh, we're secondary to the coffee.
Well,
it gets the ushers in this one.
yes, the ushers and the coffee. That is why people come to Civic. Yes, but occasionally there's a wonderful director who directs his players in a good show. So Chris, would you please tell us about the show?
Sure. The School for Lies is an adaptation by David Ives of Molière's The Misanthrope. And it takes place in Paris, 1666. And there is a young widow who has a salon with hangers-on who all feign and flatter and fawn over each other. And in comes, to this mix comes a man called Frank, who is very frank and who refuses to play these games.
You're
right. And these opposites, which are not unlike Petruchio and Kate in The Taming of the Shrew, or Beatrice and Benedict in Much Ado About Nothing. Of course, they're each told a little lie, and what happens is they, discover that there's some chemistry between them. I won't go to the end of what happens in the play, but it's very exciting. It's fast. It's farcical. It's all in rhyme couplet. It's it's a fun play, and the audience has fun too.
Yes. Well, any of those combinations, as you referenced, Taming of the Shrew, the people just missing each other and throwing out barbs. They're always fun.
Right.
So here are our two of your players.
Right. So Angelique plays Eliante, and Eliante is a young protege of the woman that runs the salon, and she also falls in love with Frank. And they are very mismatched, but she does not know that, and she is anxious to start becoming a young woman. So she's more interested in that. And so complications ensue. And then David plays Clitander. He is one of the suitors of Célimène. There are 3 suitors who are pretty buffoonish, and they all are, well, you can tell more about that.
Yes. Okay. So, Angelique, let me speak with you first. Now, have you done other shows at Civic or other places, first of all?
Yep, I have. Actually, I was just recently at Schenectady Civic in an Inspector Calls. I was the inspector.
Yes, that was a great show.
Yeah, a complete contrast from what I'm doing here. And actually, a lot of my work tends to be more of a dramatic nature. So I jumped at the opportunity to get to be in something that's more farcical and more fun. And it's a delight to be able to just laugh every time you're on stage, every time you're off stage. I hear something new that I didn't hear before. That is just, it's uplifting for the spirit, for sure.
Yes. And as many actors say, it's fun to sometimes play a villain or something because it brings out in you some other things.
For
so
sure.
Something
and for
comical.
This is different, because Eliante is so sweet and so kind of, I was thinking the other night that I often play characters who kind of have the weight of the world on their shoulders. And it's really, really nice to play someone who doesn't even know what the world entails.
And there's many of us that wish we were in those shoes. Yes. And so, David, you've been on stage before.
Yes.
And where is that?
Well, most recently I was at Schenectady Light Opera with Curtains. I played Johnny Harmon, the stage manager, and Albany Civic. Earlier for Peter and the Starcatcher, which was a great deal of fun. And some other plays at Schenectady Civic Players and Albany Civic.
So, Chris, it sounds like you were working with people that have had some experience,
I
some
have
veterans.
a top-notch cast. I really do. I'm very lucky that way. So and it's a joy for me to go every night. After the drudgery of work, it's like I look forward to coming to the theater each night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I happened to see on some of the slides, it looked like the costumes were lovely. Although
costumes?
those were not the real ones,
Well,
I was assured.
Right.
But
When you do a photo shoot, it's sometimes 4 weeks before
Oh, yes,
production, so you know.
absolutely. Yeah.
But the costumes are lovely, and the set is beautiful, and the wigs, everybody's wigged. It's extraordinary to look at. It's going to be stunning.
It's lavish.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and it's fun to go from one to another. Having seen the inspector calls, that was kind of low key, relatively costume-wise.
Absolutely, and stage-wise,
And stage-wise,
completely
very
bare.
minimal.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
I mean, one thing at Civic, they have people that design beautiful sets. So, how is your set for this show?
It is beautiful. However, it is not a realistic room. It is more like a theater setting, in which the play is taking place on that theater setting.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, but it
Yes.
still works just great.
And can you tell us, when does it begin and where can people get tickets?
We
please?
open this Friday, May 4th, and it runs Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the following Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And of course, if people had not known, the elevator works.
Ah,
Yes.
yes. The long anticipated and welcomed elevator is there. It is functioning.
Yes.
It's beautiful too. They
Yes.
really did a nice job with
Yes. They
the
have,
lobbies
yeah.
and the
It has its own
stairways
little
and things, yeah.
lobby
Yeah, it's
and
gorgeous.
everything. It's gorgeous. But I mean, for many people, it's a little hard. Our stairs are steep.
Right, the
at
stairs are
Civic,
steep,
you know,
absolutely.
So now there's no excuse not to go anymore. They have wonderful elevator, and it'll get you right up there. And to see the School for Lies under the direction of Chris Foster coming up with wonderful players in it. And again, we have so much theater in this area. We are just blessed. And as you say, Chris, that sometimes allows you to have such good players
Yeah.
on stage, because there are many, many people who want to be in our plays around our area.
It's true.
So we thank you for coming. Go get your ticket. And let's see, I believe I'm making coffee on that Thursday. So I know it'll be good.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for being here. So we'll go and look at a little bit more composting right now.
Even throughout the year to use. They're nice and compressed inside that bag, and it's a free material. And the other thing about it is they break down really quickly. Not all types of carbon break down as readily as others. Wood chips, for an example. Wood chips are an excellent source of carbon, very carbon rich, but it takes longer for them to actually break down. They're commonly used in municipal composting just because there's a lot of them available, and because there's per pound more carbon in there than other materials in terms of volume. Okay, so leaves, newspaper you mentioned, into an anaerobic rotting pile of glop, and that is not compost. And if you take my workshop this afternoon, I'll teach you about rotting piles of glop, and they actually have their use, but we have to be a little more careful with them. But composting is not that. It must have oxygen, so it's really critical that air be able to infiltrate into the compost. So that's why your carbon-based materials not only generally are supplying carbon, but they're also creating physical structure in the compost pile that allows air to infiltrate into it, which is important. We mentioned wood chips. Any other carbon-based materials we can think of? What's that? Coffee grounds are pretty nitrogen-rich, actually. Yeah.
Sawdust.
Sawdust, yeah. Sawdust you need to be a little bit careful with, because it tends to, when it gets wet, it clumps a lot. But it will work, yeah. Sawdust is really great for human manure composting systems just because it's very absorbent. Straw is an excellent source of carbon.
Cardboard.
Cardboard, shredded cardboard, yeah. Shredded paper plates. Straw is a little tricky because you generally have to buy it, and the price fluctuates. I've seen sometimes as low as $3 a bale, sometimes as much as $10 a bale. I got those over there. Right now it's about $6 a bale in this area. But what's cool about straw is that it's actually a straw. It's a tube, it's a conduit, and that allows oxygen to move into the compost pile. And the thing about it also, it's very compressed. So if you don't have a lot of space to be storing materials, straw bales are nice because it's so packed together so tightly. And if, say, in the middle of the winter or the summer, you want to be a good segue into nitrogen-based materials. So, grass clippings you mentioned are a great nitrogen-based material. Question?
I have one more question about the carbon-based.
Yeah.
Do you need to be concerned at all about newspaper? I know a lot of...
We mentioned grass clippings is a good nitrogen-based material. What else? Kitchen scraps. That's your main thing. What you're mostly trying to do here is keep your kitchen scraps, keep your food waste out of the landfill. So that's the stuff that you're putting into the compost pile, your kitchen scraps.
Well, welcome back. Well, we're done with lies. Jason is only going to tell us the truth right now. So my guest is Jason LeQuay, and he is the Director of Special Events for Schenectady County, and he's going to tell us about the Pedal Paddle Run
It's a tongue
event.
twister.
Yes, yes. So I'm glad I only have to say it once and not 10 times. So would you please tell us about the Pedal Paddle Run event?
So Schenectady County's Pedal Paddle Run is a triathlon put on by Schenectady County, and we coined it not your typical triathlon. So it starts out with a 7-mile bike ride. We transition into a 2-mile kayak on the Mohawk River, and then a 5K run. So we kind of substituted a swim for a kayak and get you out there. It's Saturday, May 12th at Aqueduct Park in Niskayuna. This is our 5th year in Aqueduct Park hosting this event. It can be done as individuals or as a team, teams of 2 or 3. We've had a team of 4 out there with a 2-person kayak. So it's a great day to celebrate, health and wellness, some of the assets in our community, and we call it a friendly but competitive triathlon.
Okay. Well, it's probably a good thing, noting our weather, that we're not doing the swimming on May 12th, because it's probably still going to be...
The ice just melted out of the Mohawk, so...
Yes. Now, so what is the purpose of this?
So the purpose of the event is to really showcase some of our major assets we have here in the county. We are extremely lucky in Schenectady County to have a bike path that essentially runs end to end, from Niskayuna right out to Princetown and Duanesburg. One of our greatest assets we have is we're a riverfront community, end to end. And what Pedal Paddle Run does is allows the community to come out in a safe and organized way and kind of check out these assets. It can be a little intimidating to take the bike path for the first time if you're not quite sure where it is, where to park. Kayaking, getting out on the Mohawk for the first time. It just gives you a real opportunity and a sense of what are some things I can do right here in my own backyard. You don't have to travel very far to do some of these things, and we want to showcase these major assets we have.
Yes, yes, and as you say, I think that is very true. People may not know where to park, that the car will be there and they're not going to get a ticket for getting in the wrong place. And I think also when you think of the water, we know that there's some places that eventually, thinking of Cohoes Falls, I mean, you don't want to end up there or something like that. And also the condition of the riverbed. Is there enough water? How do you know that it's deep enough to do your canoeing or your kayaking? So where do you get that information? How do you know what it looks like?
And the beautiful part about this event is, we partner closely with the town of Niskayuna, and one small segment of the bike race dips into the city of Schenectady off Aqueduct Road. So we partner with both municipalities. When you get on the kayak and in the water, you're going to see 5 different fire departments and districts, including the sheriffs, out on the water. So it's a nice, not only do we utilize this as a great community event, health and wellness, showcasing these assets, but our law enforcement and first responders utilize this as a training exercise. So it really is cool to see the airboats out there, to see the sheriff's new boat out there, to see our law enforcement and first responders on the river. They're there for questions. They are there helping people on and off. The town of Niskayuna has an officer on a bike, which will sweep the course for us, but he's out there motivating and encouraging people. So it really is this small hometown community type feel, you know, on an event where we had an individual from Rochester last year, we had a few out-of-state individuals come in, just because of the uniqueness of the water portion, doing a triathlon where there's no swimming involved.
And how many people do you normally anticipate coming?
We average around 150 participants. You know, this year is a little challenging given the weather and people being able to train, so we are really promoting the fact that yes, it's competitive, but it's more about health and wellness and community. You know, we get a great group of individuals who have run it every single year and come back, and they're extremely competitive on beating their time, and a few of them have gotten to know each other, and they become competitive in finishing, you know, first or second or within a couple seconds of each other. But each year we see a lot of new faces too, which is great, and you know, a lot of the feedback we get is this is different, or I've never been to Aqueduct Park, or I've never seen this section of the river, or this piece of the bike path, and that's the end goal, is to really promote these different segments we have.
Yes, and as you said, I mean, even if it is competitive, sometimes it's just you compete with yourself, and are your times better? Are you improving? Things like that. So, you know, you don't have to think that some elite athlete is going to be there, and 9 hours later, here you come.
This is one of those races where I'm jealous that I have to work and I can't go out and run it. So, it's tough for me. I get, you know, anxiety. Like, I want to be out here doing this. This looks like so much fun, and you know, I'm here working instead of having fun like everybody else is. And
people can walk if
people
they don't
walk it.
Run.
You know, different people we had. You know, last year our final group coming through was a father-daughter finishing, and the father had surgery prior to this, and this was an event they decided to do together. So it was really cool to see something like that. You know, we will keep the finish line up until the last person wants to come through. We're not breaking down and going to leave you out there on the course.
Like the Boston Marathon.
Yeah, we will keep everything you know, up and running until the last person comes through. So.
Yes. So you are Director of Special Events for Schenectady County. So this is obviously one of many things. And again, tell us regarding this one, the Pedal Paddle Run. When is it?
So it's Saturday, May 12th. We start at 8 a.m. at Aqueduct Park in Niskuna. Registration is open still at schenectadycounty.com/PPR. We have kayak rentals available if anybody needs a kayak, so we really try to take all the thinking out of it.
Yes.
You just need to show up. You know, we have everything there that you will need. We will do on-site registration day of. You know, we start early enough in the day where you can finish and still get your kids' soccer games or Little League games, or have the rest of the day to yourself. So.
And so how long does it normally take an average person?
The average person is finishing anywhere between an hour and an hour and a half.
Oh, okay.
So it's not bad. A 7-mile bike ride is not
nice.
Not awful, and you know, 5K runs not bad, and the 2 miles on the Mohawk, they'll go fairly quick. And the nice part, the way the course is set up, is half the bike is uphill, the other half is downhill. half the kayak is upriver, the other half is downriver. Half the 5K is uphill, the back half is downhill. So try to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, I like the downhill.
You get the downhill with everything. Get a little reprieve in there.
Yeah, I've been. We used to do biking, and I used to have to walk up some of the hills. But eventually, you get to go down.
That's it. You get the down.
Yes, well, thank you so much for being on, Jason, and telling us about this. And it's a wonderful way. The water is a wonderful way to see our area. It's so beautiful.
It is. We have one of the most beautiful waterfronts in the capital region.
Yes, we do. Well, thank you very much. And again, we're going to go back to composing, you know, taking care of our earth. And then we'll be speaking about recycling, another way to take care of our earth. And thank you for being here.
And that's basically what I rely on mostly. There are methods of compost where you're putting in high nitrogen materials as a way to sort of spike the temperature, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, those different techniques. But generally speaking, your food waste is going to be your primary source of nitrogen. Other things you can put in a compost pile: human hair, horse fine, chicken manure.
Is that nitrogen-based human hair? Yes. Well, protein.
It's keratin and protein.
Somebody told me once not to put onions in the compost pile.
You know, it's a lot of people are very particular about what. Some people don't want to put citrus into their compost. Some people say things like don't put onion and garlic. My feeling is if it's organic biological material, put it in. It will break down. Questions about, you mentioned meat and dairy. Meat and dairy will compost. It's definitely trickier to compost them because they're more prone to putrefaction. They're more prone to starting to rot and to stink. If you have, I would not put them in a compost pile unless it was a really active compost pile that was hot and getting turned and was getting broken down really rapidly. Just because there's if you put them into a more passive compost pile, there's a tendency for them to start to smell, and that can attract rats, which can be a problem. So we can talk about that in a little bit about how to make a compost product that you can buy that's like a dog poop composter unit. I've never seen it, but I mean, it makes sense, but I think you would just want to keep it in a separate stream out of.
Hello again, and sitting next to me right now is Angela Pioni, and she's going to tell us about recycling. I know it's subtle, but she has this small container next to her. And she is from the Schenectady County Recycles and Cornell Cooperative Extension. So, recycling.
Yes.
We supposedly have been doing it for a while.
That's right. We're getting better and better at it every day.
I'm glad to hear that.
Jan, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's always great to be on the show. And I'm usually here talking to your viewers about recycling, but composting. Composting is the next wave of how to become a better recycler.
Okay.
So composting is not just something that gardeners do. It's very easy to compost at home. There are many different ways that you can compost, and it's so important because here in America, 40% of our food supply goes to waste every year, which is tremendous. And for a family of 4, researchers estimate that's about $1,500 that a family just throws away in wasted food each year. So it's an economic issue, but it's an environmental issue too. When we throw food in the garbage and it goes to the landfill, that food waste actually creates methane in the landfill, which is a pollutant, causing climate change. So there's all kinds of reasons to get composting. And this year we want to get Schenectady County composting.
Oh, yes.
So we're throwing a special festival in the park this summer, the Compost Fair. It will be an family-friendly event. It's free to attend. We'll have all different kinds of exhibits and displays. We've partnered with a lot of community leaders to come and do games for kids and all kinds of fun stuff at the fair. So we want to get Schenectady County composting this summer.
So what are the realities of it? I mean, how are you going to make this happen? My daughter composts, but she has a composter out her front door. So on the way out the door, she puts things right in her composter, but not everybody can do that.
Absolutely. So there are so many different ways to compost your yard waste and your food scraps, and we want to offer families education about that. So there's actually ways you can compost indoors, which is how I compost at home with a worm bin. So I have a container filled with worms I keep in my broom closet, and I put my food scraps in there, and they create this beautiful finished compost that then I use for my plants. So even if you don't want to do backyard composting, if that's kind of intimidating, there are other ways that you can compost food. And it's really exciting for me. My background is in environmental science. There's so much science behind how compost is made. Even the scraps of food that we don't eat, you know, your banana peels, your eggshells, your coffee grounds, there's energy in those scraps of food, and we can recycle it through composting. So it's very exciting. So to get started, you can just start collecting your food scraps in the kitchen as you're preparing meals. You know, coffee grounds, eggshells, vegetable skins, things like that. And then when you are ready to compost, you take it out to a container like I brought with me today, the compost bins that we're selling. And you really want to layer your materials in there. So whenever you're going to put food in your compost bin, you want to be sure to cover it up with lots of leaves, waste from the garden. You can even compost your shredded paper and your junk mail and,
I was going to say,
things
there's
like
some
that.
people that don't have a garden, they don't have, somebody mows their lawn,
Right.
so they don't have the greens. So we can use shredded newspaper.
Shredded junk mail, shredded newspaper, all kinds of things you can compost at home, right? So the idea is by layering your compost in the bin like that with food and yard waste and browns and greens, you can make a beautiful compost very easily with very little effort involved. So we want to empower people with how easy it is to compost. That's why we're throwing the festival this summer. So leading up to the festival, people can sign up to order these buckets, and we've chosen to sell the Geo bin, the backyard composting bin, and they can sign up to pre-order them and come and pick them up at the fair this summer. So we're really excited about that.
Now, do they have to be covered or anything like that? I mean, you just put it in your backyard?
That's a great question. They're so easy to set up. They come rolled up in a box and you expand it out. What's cool about the GeoBin is it can actually expand up to 4 feet wide. So here I have it only about half of its capacity. So you can start small if you think you don't have a lot to compost, and you'll quickly find there's so much we can compost. So then later in the year, in the fall, when you have more leaves and things like that, this expands up to 4 feet wide. So it can hold a lot. Your question was about covering the bin or something like that. You can choose to cover it with a tarp. A lot of people do that in the winter just to keep the snowpack out of the compost. But the idea is that when you're layering lots of yard waste on top, that really protects the food and keeps away any nuisance, animals that might be getting in there.
Well, that was one of my questions.
And things like that.
What about animals? I mean,
absolutely.
People's gardens are ruined by rabbits,
squirrels,
and,
and chipmunks, and all kinds of stuff. So when you come out to the compost fair, we'll provide families with all that information about how to what are the best practices for composting, in a city environment, because that is a concern for some people. But there's tricks and tips and things like that. Like, you don't want to be composting your meat and dairy products and bones and grease and fats. If you avoid those types of things, those are what really draw the critters to come and investigate. So, proper composting and a few tips about how to layer your material in the bin, you'll be all set. And you'll make a beautiful compost.
Now, some people might think, oh, it's going to be smelly, because you think of garbage, food garbage, gets smelly. So, especially this one that you might keep in your house, with or without worms.
Oh, I get that question so often, and let me tell you, these buckets seal very tight. It's a tight lid, and I keep mine under my kitchen sink, and I don't have any odors, because as soon as it's about halfway full, I'm going to empty it out. These buckets are dishwasher safe. You can run them through your dishwasher. They're really easy to clean out, and when you have compost in your backyard, it really doesn't smell when you're following those few tips and tricks that I mentioned. Always making sure you're covering up your food waste with lots of sticks or green waste from the garden, trimmings, leaves, newspaper, cardboard. You want to cover your food, and that also really prevents odors and does a lot of work for you too, balancing the types of things you have in there.
Okay.
And you'll get all that information at the compost fair.
And tell us the compost fair. We've been running the slide.
Yes, so it's the last Saturday in July over at the Sustainable Living Center in Central Park. I don't know if you've ever been able to come and see the facilities we have there. There's gardens and greenhouses, and we run workshops out of the classroom. So the compost fair will be in Central Park at the Sustainable Living Center from 10 to 2. There'll be all kinds of exhibits and games for kids. Whether you have been composting for years or you just want to learn how to get started, there'll be something there for everyone. So we're really excited about that. We have a variety of volunteers behind the event. The Master Composter volunteers at Extension. There'll be Master Gardener volunteers there. There'll be tons of attractions, and we've been able to partner with a lot of community leaders in composting.
Yes.
Food Scraps 360 will be there. They are a local collection company that will actually come and pick up your food scraps. If you're not ready to start composting,
Wow.
they will actually come
That's a
and pick up your
commitment.
food scraps, and they'll do the composting for you. So they've sponsored the event. We're really happy to have them on
Yes.
board, and Schenectady County Farm Bureau also is one of our sponsors. I want to
Yeah.
thank them so much for getting behind the project and helping us out there.
And this helps our earth and uses our food in such a positive way. I thank you so much for coming on
Absolutely.
board
Thank
and
you so
telling
much
us
for
all
having
about
me.
this. So go to this and learn some things. It'll help you to cut down on the garbage that's going into our landfills
Absolutely.
and so much waste.
And I encourage your viewers to learn more about Extension by visiting our website, because we're celebrating 100 years
100
in
years,
Schenectady County
yes.
this year. So
Yeah.
you might know about the gardening program, but you may not know we have a variety of other programs in nutrition, environmental science,
Yes.
healthy families, and parenting. So happy birthday, Cornell Cooperative
Yes,
Extension.
we've been
and
running that
yes,
slide.
learn more
and
on our
100
website.
years of very, very good work.
Thank you so
Very good.
much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll now go to yes, we'll go back to our break, and then before your very eyes, we'll have that band back again.
Is wood ash, also known as, they call it potash.
Yeah.
You just need to be really careful with it, not to add too much, because wood ash is so extremely alkaline that it could potentially wipe out a compost pile by shocking it by being too alkaline. So I would say sprinkle very lightly and dilute. That's traditionally used for wood ash from a wood stove, is to sort of distribute it across a field. But I think you have to do it in very low concentrations. And in low concentrations, it's a great source of potassium. But if you put too much of it, it can burn the roots of plants. So yeah, go light with it, I guess would be my suggestion. There are two main different methods that I've used and have different purposes. And they basically are the hot method and the cold method, also known as, respectively, the active and the passive method. Passive method is probably my favorite because it doesn't involve any turning. You don't have to turn a compost pile, which is a pretty labor-intensive activity. I've strained my back a number of times turning compost piles. In this cold passive method, basically what you're doing is creating a container for compost and adding in your food waste materials and then adding carbon-based materials on top of them. And, I'm sorry, could we hold this up once again? Is to make a wire cage, like the one you see right over there. To take some sort of fencing material and bend it into a ring. To basically create a cylinder in which you could put materials into, and it's strong enough to be able to contain it. So what you do is begin at the bottom. I like to layer it with sticks, you know, a couple inches of sticks at the bottom. That's sort of going to give it a structure and allow air to be able to come in from the.
Well, hello again, and as you see, our favorite band for today's show is on the set, all ready to go. But before we have some more information and music from Squeeze Play, I'd like to let you know what's coming on next week. So we have the Animal Protection Foundation Foster Program will be coming on. The Brown School is celebrating its 125th anniversary, and that's a wonderful and very unique school in our area. We're going to be talking about the Freihofer's Run for Women and possibly Living Resources, which is a wonderful program in the area. Mendelssohn Club of Albany. So Jeff Friedenberg is going to be coming in and telling us about what that wonderful men's chorus will be doing. And they usually have a very exciting guest. And I will be interviewed by Ann in my normal position. I'll be speaking about the Proctor's Historical Committee. So I'd like to talk to a couple more members of this band, and then they're going to play the show out. So, hello.
Hi. I'm Pam Dodson. I'm the newbie of the group. I just joined last October.
Ah, yes. And so what were you doing before? Did you just start taking the accordion a little while ago?
No, I've been playing since I was 8 years old, but I wasn't playing with a band, and playing with a band is like nothing else.
Yes. I sing with a large chorus, so I know what that means. So, hello, we have another accordion player. My goodness. Please tell me your name, how long you've played accordion, and how long you've been in the band.
Okay. Hi, my name is Russ Picorni, and I started playing accordion actually with Peggy at Old Songs about 5 or 6 years ago. I'd played piano previously, but I was taking fiddle lessons, and the accordion sounded like so much fun I couldn't resist.
Thank you. So, Peggy, what are we going to close the show with?
I thought we would do the Schneewalzer, and I do Lois Achtaler, and then we'll close it with the railroad.
All right. Sounds like a good deal. So thank you again for being here. This is the wonderful band that we have here, Squeeze Play, and we had given their information earlier if you wanted to contact them. So look for them. They're out there doing things. And thank you for being on Schenectady Today, in and around the Capital Region. Take it away. number. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. We go to the German club, and I love to hear this. Moosey Den, yes.